So, my hype reel, it kind of blew up, which is insane. So I want to just say thank you. Thank you to all the new followers that have come to this channel, as well as my followers on Instagram. It really doubled in a couple of weeks and I'm still processing. So many of you reached out asking how I made certain scenes, what software I used, and how things work under the hood. You even tried recreating some of the scenes yourself, which was so cool to see. And honestly, I wouldn't be here without the people that put out their free content, used their own time when I was just learning. So I want to do the same thing. This is the first video in a series that I will be creating called Steal My Reel, where I break down my show reel scene by scene, technique by technique. And to kick things off, I'm going to be opening the floodgates, leaving myself fully vulnerable for you guys as the vultures of my content. I'm giving away the intro scene to my show reel for free. Link in the description. So go grab it, pull it apart, and tell me in the comments what you're really excited to learn more about, and moving forward I can make some videos on that and we can unpack it together. Today we're going to be starting super simple. This transition right here. If you've never used Cavalry before, quick rundown. It's a 2D motion design app. Think of it as procedural node-based animation tool. If you've ever used After Effects, it's completely different and it will flip it on its head. This is a very different way of thinking, but once it clicks, it really sticks. And trust me when I say it's super addictive. I spent so much time recreating my own work just so I could get that thrill of doing it in Cavalry. Plus, Cavalry is free to download, so let's build. When you're creating a new scene in Cavalry, before you do anything at all, go into your preferences, and to do that, I go Cavalry, Preferences, and make sure you have autosave turned on. By default, it's set to reminders, which isn't much help for anyone. I set mine to 30 minutes interval, but you can set yours to even shorter if you want. Cavalry will crash a lot. That's just what happens when we're using this sort of procedural based motions, and you've got to expect that bugs will happen in the same way it happens in After Effects and other software. You will have this toolbar here where it says no project set. You might be used to just creating one composition or one project file and then everything runs out of that. Cavalry is a little bit different. So if I go to this icon here, you can see that I have no project set, and I can quickly create a path for that. Cavalry will create all of these subfolders within that project. So I'll have my scenes, my renders, my assets, those autosaves that I told you to just turn on, as well as any palettes and anything else that I want to save and import into the scene. It's best practice to put this in this folder within the assets and keep it all nice and clean together. Choose your project path. As you can see with my Finder window, it's created that main folder with all of these little subfolders inside, and it will automatically, when I'm going to render things, the renders will come in here. I don't have to be limited to just this scene. I could create duplicates and different versions and really organize it any way that I want. By default, Cavalry will create my composition. To update any of these settings, it's really easy. I can either hit Command K, and that will open up this resolution window. There's a little arrow pointing to this icon here. I could also click that, but I prefer Command K. So here I've got all these different settings. I'm just going to stick to 1920 by 1080. My frame range. So frame range is the scene's length, and then playback range is sort of the in and out. I'm happy with a frame rate of 25. I can also change the background color. When I render this out, it'll render it out, and I can also set this to 0. So if I had an alpha overlay of some kind, I could then turn that off. Playback step. If you're working in a 60 frame per second scene and maybe things are playing back a little bit slow, you can set this to 2 and it'll play back at 30 and give you a lot smoother playback. I like to turn this on if I'm really struggling, but we shouldn't have any of those issues today. You can also turn on motion blur. We won't be doing that today. You can see here I've got all my assets. I don't have any assets, but I've got this composition. There's an attribute editor that's empty right now. And then I've got my scene window, which looks very similar to After Effects. I've got the time here. This shelf is awesome. It contains a lot of handy tools that you might like to use very quickly. So I've got my direct selection tool, a pivot tool, a shape tool, pencil tool, camera, tracking line, text, mesh, rectangle, primitive, circle, a polygon, and star. Today, we're just going to do a rectangle. Option, click, and what that will do is create the rectangle center in my scene at position 0, 0. Otherwise, I can also click this and then just drag and create my own custom shape. I just like to click Option. A really handy feature is this one here. This is called live mode. It's really helpful if you have multiples. So if I duplicate this, what happens is when I live select on either one of these, it automatically updates here because it's on live mode. If I didn't do that, I'd have to double click, and then you can see this number going from 0 to 2. It just keeps everything in the attribute editor, and I find it can get quite messy. So the live mode just saves me a few clicks. I can also pin anything that I want. So if I wanted this rectangle shape to stay, I could pin it and then move on to something else. But as I drag down, I can see that it is still in this window if I want to connect anything up. So at the top here, we've got our generic settings for position, rotation, scale, skew, pivot, as well as all these different blend modes and deformers that I can put onto this shape, as well as filters, a whole lot. Don't need to go into that either. In the primitive type, I've got my size. As I hover over the 200 width, you can see my cursor changes. By clicking and dragging, I can drag out that shape and really make it quite responsive to whatever size I want. Almost crafting it a little bit like jelly. I don't know, something like this. I'm going to start with rename this layer. I can just click on it, press enter or return, and go bar 1. Now, with that shape selected, come up to the top here to where there's a whole nother shelf of different tools as well. These are already preloaded by the team at Cavalry, and these are really cool tools that they think that you will get the most use out of. The first one, which I think is the best, is a duplicator. So if I click on duplicator and I have my bar selected, you can see that it automatically puts it into this duplicator. I can see the duplicator has its own set of position, rotation, and scale and whatnot. Come down here, and as I look, I can see that the input shape is that bar, as well as the distribution is set to grid. I want to change it to something else, and there's so many. Trust me, there is a lot, and there's some of them that I haven't even fully gotten into. Example, no idea what custom does yet. Stay tuned, maybe that'll be a future video. What I'm going to click is linear. This bar on a linear path and duplicates it 3 times because there is a count of 3. And if I change this size of the distribution, it starts moving things apart. What this probably would feel familiar to in After Effects. You put a repeater on. What this is doing is sort of a similar thing, but has a lot more power. Trust me when I say that. If I set my count to 1, this will be a really easy way to visualize what's going on here. I'm going to set my X position and put a keyframe on it. You can still do manual animation as you would expect in any other software. When you get more and more familiar with Cavalry, not everything needs to be super fancy. Sometimes just doing it manually is way faster. And trust me on that, I've been down that rabbit hole a lot. If I click this keyframe and go Shift and plus on my keyboard, I can start bumping it forward. I can put my mouse over this and see how it changes. I can then start to drag it back. And if I hold down Shift, this will move it in larger intervals. And then if I hold Command, it's micro intervals. You can see those little decimal points. This is a super linear animation. It's so boring. Select these keyframes. By clicking on the graph editor here, click Option and click on this keyframe, and it'll automatically turn that into a Bezier handle for me. And then I can start dragging these handles and sort of create shooting through. I like the way that that looks. I've got my base animation down, and I'm pretty happy with that. It doesn't look like much, I know. If I come back to my duplicator, I can start to turn up the count. For this scene, I want to set it to vertical, so it sort of stacks on top of one another. Increase that amount, but now they're overlapping, which isn't really ideal. I know that the height of this shape is 100, and with the way that Cavalry works, everything can be plugged into pretty much everything. So if I grab this height, scroll down, and I can put that into my size, I've got it set to steps, and I can change the height too, and it'll still change depending on that. But when I start to create these sort of connections, that there is a purple little arrow going out, and when I click on that, the bar is being connected as an input shape into that duplicator, as well as the height of that shape is being plugged in with that. I'm not going to go into it too far, but just know that anything you can pretty much connect into everything. You start to play with that a little bit more as we go, and you will get the vibe where these shapes are going across. They're not really doing much. I'm also going to label this linear vertical, so I understand what it is, because we might start stacking up these duplicators. Wait and see. The one that I'm interested in is the shape time offset. This is so good for creating staggers. Right click on it and I can come up to behavior. There's so many in here, don't worry. But stagger is a really easy one to remember. And you can see instantly as I click that, it's created this stagger, it's created these gorgeous steps. And as I'm animating it through, it is doing that. But it's starting too early. Click on that. Right now it's set to 5. But what happens if I set it to -5? Well, there you go. It starts at like when these keyframes like happen. By default, I always set it to like a negative value so that it's not starting like early before these keyframes. In this example, I have 2 on the count of the linear duplicator. And with this stagger set to -5, what it is saying is that the first one starts playing at the 0 mark where this keyframe starts happening. And then if I move forward, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this one starts happening as well. There's a number of 5 that's in between these 2 shapes. But when you start adding more to this stack, 1, 2, 3, oh, and that one's already started, 4, 5, that stagger is actually being applied across all 3 shapes. So really there's only a -2.5 frames here, and then here is being distributed amongst the whole stack. If I know that I want a 2-frame stagger between 12 in this count of this duplicator, which must mean then that there is 11 gaps between each of these. And then if I do a little bit of simple maths, 2 times 11, 22. And I want to do that as a negative value. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So yeah, you're figuring out a bit more maths for the whole thing, but once you do it a few times, it makes a lot more sense. There is a lot more flexibility that you can do. So if I click on my stagger, I can actually click on a graph option here. And right now, it's looking quite linear. If I start trying some of these little presets, whoa, you can see that that's already changed how this is animating across. This graph is dictating which of the children of that duplicator is getting shot out first. I can change this graph and it starts to really change how these are getting shipped across. So it's really fun. You can just like play with this for ages and get all these different kinds of results, and it takes absolutely nothing. But what I've done with my animation is like really not much further than this, to be fair. You'll be like, you're a stan, what do you mean? How do we get some color into this? Well, if I go to my child shape, the bar 1, fill, I go to the side. So if you click on this, I've made myself my own little custom palette here, but you can also do the same. We can create palettes that are only for the project, which live in that asset folder that I showed you before. You can see palettes, they would be saved in here, but you can choose any of the ones here and you can also create your own. And these little dots here give me a whole bunch of options. Create an array from the palette. What an array is essentially it's just a list. It's a list of information, a list of data that we can store and then plug that data into our animations to create rules, to create some randomization, but at the same time, keep it within the list that we have specified. Create array from palette. You'll see that I have now created a color array. And by default, it's already put in those colors for me. I've got this blue dot here. I'm going to grab this and connect it to my bar to fill color. Oh my God, we have color, we have light. How amazing. And I can easily just like start to like change his colors or like do whatever, but we're not going to do that because that would be off brand for this series. If I turn off the auto index, it's all green. Why is it all green? Well, because the index is set to 0, and how Cavalry works is that everything is controlled by 0s and 1s and 2s and 3s. It's all indexed, it's all little numbers, all connecting together. My index is set to 0 for all of these shapes. If I look here, is that light green? And if I turn up that number, I can start cycling, right click, and I will go to behavior and come down to random. And what that's going to do now, each color is just going to be set at random from 0 to 4. And I'm finding things are getting a little bit messy. So a really nice way to start cleaning things up is I can start stacking this bar into this duplicator, because I know that this bar is part of this duplicator. It makes sense to stack it underneath it. And that gives me a visual idea as to what is going on. And same with this stagger. I can grab this, drag it down, and put it within that duplicator to keep things nice and clean. So when I click on these chevrons, there we go, tidy. I don't have mess. Put this duplicator into another duplicator. We're going fully crazy today. I'm going to name this more linear. There's a better name for this, but I do not care today. So with that turned on, whoa, you can see we've got some craziness happening already. And it's looking pretty gross. So what I'm going to do is instead, I'm going to turn this time to point, creating the same animation again on the exact same point. It's duplicating everything that's happening under here. So this animation is getting duplicated again into here 3 times. And because I have that stagger on the bottom layer, it is still creating some more randomness, which is kind of cool. But I don't really like the way that it's looking. Duplicator, if I go to advanced, come here to use index context. It just like kind of stops all of the logic that's happening here from coming up any further. Like it kind of creates like a blocker. It's not then staggering this stagger again, which is kind of what's creating this funny look. So by turning use index context off, I'm sort of like stopping it at the source from doing anything too buck wild and crazy. I'm gonna stack this as well. Now with that in place, what I'll do is put a stagger on this as well, on this duplicator. So do that, but it is staggering. I can see more layers occurring. So 10 sounds good. It's starting to fill the page. I might even do like 15. A lot of this is just playing around and like seeing what results you get, which is like really fun. I think the real magic though for this will actually come in when I start changing this like color array. So instead of having solid colors, what I think looks even more effective, gradients. So we'll keep this random. I just deleted that array. I'll go to the shaders here and right click and go add shader array. Now what that lets me do is stack a whole bunch of different shaders. So if I right click on this shader, come to gradient shader, I can start building up a set of shaders within here. A really easy way to then start populating those shaders is if I select this gradient, come over to the side and then go set gradient from palette. I start getting that gradient coming through here, but I think it's looking a little bit muddy. I might get rid of this color. I would distribute them with this button here and maybe add some more stops. So then I can start adding some more gradients. So I'll duplicate this one and then I'll place this here, plug that in. Let's take these values a little bit. So maybe in this one, I'll get rid of those. Distribute that again, add some extra stops, even flip it around. That looks a whole lot more interesting than the solid colors, I think. I like how that's turning out. I like to come to the offset, and on the offset, I'll right click and go add behavior, come down to frame, and I'm gonna do it on the X, seeing as we're traveling on the X. It creates movement along this gradient. But as you can see, it's sort of clamped on the edges. And if I come into the gradient itself, its tiling is set to clamp. So I can actually change this to mirror. And then as I continue this animation, it will just mirror itself and be continuous, which is pretty good. Maybe I can do 150. It's fast, but like, so is this transition. So whenever I don't have something selected here, I can also just quickly click on this blue dot and then click and drag and create a connection. And I love the way that it visualizes. It's quite addictive to just like move this around and see this little string stretch and snap, release it on this gradient shader. And it'll give me a whole bunch of options that I can connect it to. And I know that it needs to be connected on the X here. And then I'll do it for this one up the top. I need to make sure that all these other gradients are set to mirror. Whoa, that's a trip. A bit more randomness. If I set this to screen space, distribute that gradient a little bit differently, interchange it a little bit. Some will be screen space, some won't. And there's some gaps still happening like here. Decrease this value so then I can like have some overlapping. I just think about these values that I'm placing in and just instantly seeing the results. Cool. So that animation done, really, you guessed it, put it into another duplicator. Oh, wow. Crazy, because it's set to a grid again. Just set it to point. I could just watch this forever, but I can't. I need to film this video. I'm going to set the point to 2. What I want to happen is I transition to becoming from left to right, and then the other one coming right to left. So with this on top, I'm going to rename it reverse. Whatever you name it, as long as you know what's happening. And if you're working in a bigger team, as long as the rest of the team knows. Go to shape scale, and I'm going to plug in, you guessed it, an array onto the X. First value is good. I'm going to add a second value, and on the second value I'm going to say -1. And as you can see, this flips it around again. It's coming to the advanced and go use index context. There we go. That treats the duplicator before as is, and it doesn't bring through that stagger traveling any further up. So I'm actually just getting that flipped result on both ends. I've plugged in an array, and we know that an array is a list. It's 2 points of data. I'm saying to Cavalry that on the first point of the duplicated item, so I've got a count of 2, 1, 2. On the first one, that scale will be 1. On the second one, it'll be -1, because I know that if I was to flip that whole transition on its X on the scale and invert it, it would flip it. And because this is all connected all the way through to the bottom, any changes that I make, whether that is on the gradient or the staggers at the bottom, they travel through. So it is so fast to get completely unique and different results every single time. And with that, let me transition to the next scene. So that's episode 1. We started simple on purpose, but with a quick look into Cavalry's signature dish, Duplicators. Next time, I'm going to be diving into components, which is a little bit more spicy and does take more intermediate understanding of Cavalry, but it leans into what makes Cavalry so powerful, which is scalability. If you want to look into my project file, it's free below, link in the description. And if you love it, you can also buy me a coffee or send me a little dollar my way to say thank you. Anything is appreciated. Subscribe if you want to learn Cavalry with me. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much. I can't wait to see you in the next one.